There are things happening that I can't explain.
Demons can attach themselves to objects.
What do I do?
Protect your family.
Father Perez?
May God have mercy on your soul!
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Ron.
This is our review of Annabelle, starring Annabelle Wallis, Ward Horton, Alfre Woodard, and Tony Amendola. Directed by John Leonetti. In theaters now, as of October 2014, on a budget of $6.5 million, has grossed over $129 million at the time of this recording. And this is our other little treat in your trick-or-treat bag for Halloween, everybody. We did an extra review on top of our Halloween series for The House of the Devil, and as we were getting ready for that, you and I exchanged texts and tweets about Annabelle, and you were like, hey, why don't we just go ahead and do this one too, since we both have seen it, and it's, in theaters now. And I said, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, and it feels like a good companion piece to the other movie we did, the extra treat, House of the Devil.
Indeed it does. I mean, and I've seen the movie that this is the spinoff from, The Conjuring, several times. Watched it in theaters. It's been on HBO, seems like constantly for the last 2 months. And, we watched a lot. My wife and I really like this. We went and saw this in theaters too, and we like this kind of thing. And so I was like, yeah, sure. Well, this is a good one to do on the heels of that. This is sort of the big budget version of what all that could be, right? That's what this is trying to be, at least.
Yeah, it definitely it's definitely got more of a budget, but it still maintains the kind of fairly slow pace, older style of filmmaking. Mm-hmm. I mean, Annabelle is a movie that is set in, what is it, the 60s, late 60s?
Yeah, 68, 69.
It feels like a movie from that time period, a little bit glossier, mm-hmm. Special effects much better, of course, than you would get in 1968, but it definitely feels like another period flick to kind of go with the 80s, the slice of the 80s that was House of the Devil. Yeah,
and just real quick, because we're not going to review it or anything here, but I'm assuming you've seen The Conjuring as well.
Oh yeah, it worked for me. I like Patrick Wilson just in general, mm-hmm. so that was a nice thing to have.
I enjoyed him. I thought Vera Farmiga was great in it. I love her on Bates Motel. That's one of my
she's phenomenal on Bates Motel.
Favorite shows on TV right now. It's just fabulous. And I thought that worked pretty well. I mean, it falls into the same constraint of this film, and we didn't even talk about it in House of the Devil, but the whole idea of based on a true story, which means no, it's not. but that was a trope of those times, right? Was that everything was based on a true story, ripped from the headlines or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. But whatever. I enjoyed The Conjuring pretty well. The end of it, I think I talked about last time that exorcisms just kind of bug me. At some point, I'm just tired of seeing them now. I'm sort of seeing a ton of them at this point. And I thought, I don't want to see any more exorcism, but it was fine otherwise. I was curious to check in on this because I know they're doing sequels to The Conjuring, but the Ed and Lorraine Warren files, the Annabelle, I guess the tag story that's on the front of The Conjuring got a lot of people interested in, hey, what's that all about? And so they did a little spinoff here.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was hoping this movie was going to be. I really want the nurse's story.
Yeah, I thought that was what was going to happen because I'll be honest with you, the first 5 minutes of The Conjuring, that nurse's story, is some of the most unnerving stuff in that movie. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I definitely wanted that. I mean, I'm not, displeased by what happened in this particular film. No. But I'm thinking Annabelle 2, where they actually do the nurse's story, is just going to knock my socks off.
Yeah, I'm hoping, and I am assuming by the budget on this that is definitely coming around soon. Because when I wrote that down, it was 129 million. I just looked, and it's like over 130 now. So this movie's made a lot of dough, and it's part of it. It's coming out at the right time of year. The Saw movies made tons of money for years. One, because I actually think they're pretty good, but also because they came out at the right time of year. People want to see this kind of stuff. They're in for it. They're down for it. And, the Conjuring works, so why not try and do this one? And I was curious to see what they could do. Could they make a killer doll movie that wasn't stupid like Child's Play? which, I will admit some of the Child's Play movies, particularly the third one, is a personal guilty pleasure. But I would never recommend them to anyone. I mean, they're just part of something I will occasionally peep in on.
I would recommend the third one for sure.
The one where they play Army, I think, is one of the best ones that was ever made.
I think though that this would have been successful even if they hadn't released it at Halloween. I mean, The Conjuring came out in the middle of the summer.
That's right.
It was a phenomenal business wise.
Which is something to say because the summer is dominated by these superhero $200 million blockbuster action films. And to throw out a little $5 million horror film, and have it make the money it made is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's such an antidote to those kind of big budget movies. It's a lot slower paced. It's quieter. You gotta you'll be straining to listen to it.
Well, you'll be looking to see if anything's moving around the room, even when it's not, because yes, the doll's eyes are moving, and I caught myself with this one going, I'm telling you, the doll is talking in the background, and I think I'm just hallucinating. A sign of a good film, a good suspense film.
I think you're just hallucinating that too.
I probably am. So it's probably the pizza I ate.
Yeah, the drugs pizza. My thing was I really enjoyed the fact that they've got this creepy doll that everybody wants for some inexplicable reason.
Yeah.
But the doll itself is not the thing causing the problems.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it's almost like it's just the prop to the side to be creepy. It really is being used by something else, as we'll find out, right?
Yeah, that's the thing I think that I liked the most about how they set up Annabelle, both the doll and the movie. It's like you've got this creepy doll, but they don't use it in the way you would expect them to use a creepy doll. It's just kind of there. Yeah, it's there, and it's done to make us out. It's to give us the misdirection, and again, that's part of the charm of this film for sure. We can get into. So, well, let's do the plot real quick, and then we can get deeper into the movie. So, it's 1969, and soon-to-be Dr. John Form gives his expectant wife Mia a doll to add to her impressive collection for their baby's nursery. The neighbors are then killed at night by their estranged daughter and a man with her as a part of a ritualistic sacrifice from the cult they were a part of, meant to raise a demon. The police arrive in time to kill the assailants after they have attacked John and Mia, who both survive, even though Mia was stabbed in the process. The baby is born, and they move to Pasadena for John's hospital residency, and Mia and baby Leah begin experiencing odd occurrences around the apartment building and in the living area, and they seem to be centered in and around the doll John gave her as a present. Comforted by a new friend and mystical bookstore owner Evelyn, played by Alfre Woodard, Mia tries to deal with the happenings only to have them escalate to violent proportions. Employing the help of a priest, the couple trusts to get rid of the doll only results in stronger attacks from the demonic entity, claiming that it wants a soul. And in a final showdown, Mia is stopped by John moments before sacrificing herself, only to have Evelyn intervene and offer her soul to satisfy the demon. John and Mia and the priest move on, and the Annabelle doll ends up in a hobby store where it's bought by the mother of a nurse from the opening of The Conjuring as credits roll. And that's kind of a tight little summary. There's more that goes on here, but I think that gives us the gist of what we see. Yeah, I think that's more than fair.
I didn't see this opening weekend. I went and saw something else the weekend this premiered. Saw it the next weekend, but still a pretty packed theater for a matinee show for us. And I was surprised by that. And I will tell the story on myself. It takes a lot for me to get genuinely scared. I mean, like really scared watching a movie anymore. I think I've just seen too many of them. But I was particularly exhausted the Friday I went and saw this, and I'm going to blame all of this on that, but my wife got the biggest chuckles out of me I've ever heard her have in a theater, watching me jump and cover my face and squirm in my seat like I was 6 years old. And I remembered smiling and laughing at myself going, what are you doing? And I was like, this is what sleep deprivation does. But I caught myself genuinely unnerved by this. I enjoyed The Conjuring, but in no time after the first 5 minutes of it did I want to just crawl out of my seat. I literally watched parts of this movie, Ron, through my fingers. And that's been a long time since something like that happened to me.
That's a phenomenal reaction. Man, you need to go see every horror movie on like 4 hours of sleep.
I guess so. I'd probably have a lot better reaction. I don't know, some of them, I don't think there's some things would ever save. Like, I could have been up for 10 days and went and saw Halloween Resurrection in the theater, which I did see in the theater, and I think I would have still had the same awful reaction to it that I did, because that movie's terrible. But, this kind of thing, I think, works when your guard's down a little bit, and I sort of felt like, I was there. But what I noticed was I was not the only one in the crowd the same way. The young college student sitting, just to the left of my wife was death gripping her pack of M&Ms throughout the film. I mean, rattling to the point that, like, we were going to hit her, and people were shuffling. I mean, there was a lot of, ugh. And, my audiences in the South, we react to things on the screen. So I enjoy that when I get that kind of reaction out of the crowd. I wasn't the only one going with it.
Well, that sounds like you had a really good experience. I saw it like you after the opening weekend, and we had a really good crowd too. And we were at another matinee show because I'm cheap.
Actually, I like the matinee shows too because it is less of the crowd. But yeah,
but we still had a big crowd, and in the row behind us, there were like a couple of women and like 6 kids who were too young to watch something like this.
Oh my!
But here's the thing. They had the exact opposite reaction you did, where you were like squirming and people were rattling their their candy and all that stuff. They were just frozen, dead silent the entire. Like the first 5 minutes, you hear them shuffling and eating and talking to each other, and then the Annabelle starts being Annabelle, and the kids are just dead silent, and not a peep is heard from directly behind me the entire movie. It was one of the funniest reactions that I've ever seen. Because I would sneak back looks at those kids, and they were terrified. It was great.
Those are going to be some children that need therapy very soon, or they're going to grow up and do podcasts about horror movies. But I mean, that's how these things start, people. So I think anybody that's been listening to our series this October has heard me tell my Halloween story that I got introduced to that movie at a very young age, and it didn't necessarily scare me, but it froze me in my place. That is for sure. And so I can relate to that. So I enjoy seeing things in the theater like this. I think there's some movies that work well at home, and like you can just watch them at home. It's no big deal. But I do think there's something neat about seeing a good scary movie in a theater. And for the most part, this one works on that level, and I think it's built to be in that type of environment.
I think that this one, The Conjuring, Insidious, they're all theater movies.
Yeah.
More so than, like, say, Paranormal Activity, which I think works as well or better at home than it does in the big screen, especially if you watch it by yourself at night with the lights off.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think those films are really good in the dark by yourself. You don't have other people to save you from whatever's happening with Katie and her random satanicness in that film series. But let's get into this one here. So we open up in church. And I don't know about you, but I don't often thumb wrestle during the sermon on Sundays. But I suppose there's worse things you could be doing. So, as we meet our 2 people here, John and Mia, the Forms, and I'm automatically getting this, and it won't be the last time. But I thought immediately they named Mia. She's pregnant. There's going to be Satan involved. I'm thinking Rosemary's Baby again.
Oh yeah, definitely. I get that vibe almost immediately.
Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know. I mean, last time we talked about some of the homages from that Ty West was doing in The House of the Devil. In this film, I feel like sometimes that can work, and then sometimes it's really, I don't know, it's almost too much, right? Like, how are you with that vibe and the fact that the character names were even the same?
Calling them John and Mia after John Cassavetes and Mia Farrow from Rosemary's Baby was, for whatever reason, that bothered me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because she didn't get the Mia Farrow haircut at some point. Yeah. Maybe it was just because it kept the apartment that they move into when they move to Pasadena is a very much Rosemary's Baby California apartment.
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
It just feels at some points like, all right, you've seen Rosemary's Baby, so have I. Let's do something else. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, it's almost like let's put Rosemary's Baby in California. That's what a lot of this movie is and feels like. And I don't think it's done on accident either. I think the screenwriter does it that way. I believe our director here is, passioning this way. And I already realized that I'm not getting the story I want, which is the story that you talked about. I want to see the story of these nurses being haunted by this doll that moves itself around and leaves them notes with crayons and asks them, "Did you miss me?" Because that is what I was looking for. And the fact that, we get nowhere near that in this one, I don't know, it's a little disappointing.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed by that too. That was kind of what I was hoping for, as I've said. But I don't think I ended up being disappointed with the movie as a whole by the time it was over. Mm-hmm. I think there was enough weirdness, I guess, going on to slake my thirst for strange doll action.
Yeah, you definitely get some strange doll action. That's for sure. If
only because of the scene in the elevator. The elevator scene in the basement was probably the scariest thing for me because among my many weird little tics is I have a phobia of being trapped in an elevator, especially since the elevator at my workplace breaks down on the regular basis.
Oh yeah, see I could see why that would be a realistic phobia. I think a lot of people feel that way. My wife's a very claustrophobic person, doesn't do the stuck elevator thing, and I don't know that I'd particularly care for that either. So there's a lot to be said for that, for sure. But I like how we meet our characters here, though, that we do meet them, and they're just sort of a wholesome, 60s couple. They're the antithesis to everything else that's going on at the time, right? Because everybody else is dropping out, tuning in, and, doing acid, and, as he says, running off with 3 husbands and naming themselves Star. There's that whole movement going on, and John and Mia are very Ward and June Cleaverish,
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that worked really well for me was that these were like 2 of the straightest, straight-laced people.
Yes.
That you could get your hands on. I mean, she sits in the living room and sews.
Yes.
He is studying for his boards. That is like literally the extent of their exciting weekend.
Yeah, while she's watching 60 Minutes or whatever about the Helter Skelter crimes in California and the Manson family and all that stuff, and he's trying to study and relate to her at the same time. And the only thing I'll say is, and it's the one thing that's kept taking me out of it, is Annabelle Wallis does not look like a woman that comes from that era of people. She's definitely modern beauty for sure. She's not built like the women of those times were, and she doesn't wear her hair like, she doesn't really look like she fits in that era of what I would call the soon to be new mom or whatever. She looks very much more modern than that. But if you can get around that, I do think she gives a good performance.
Yeah, I think she's just fine. I mean, like you said, the hair doesn't really work, and she's got the what I call the madman trap of looking like a modern person, like cosplaying as a 60s housewife.
Exactly, yeah.
Much more so than what's his name, the husband, Ward Horton.
Yeah, is funny.
Ward Horton.
I think he comes off of soap operas or something like that, from what I've read, and he's always making cracks about don't watch soap operas, which I thought was kind of funny and tongue in cheek. But he looked like something off of My Two Dads. Or whatever. Oh, yeah. I mean, he definitely was one of those guys. So I thought, at least, the thing about John and the John character here that gets me is he's really a side note to a lot of this movie. Like, it's mostly going to be about Mia. And that again feels like Rosemary's Baby, where John Cassavetes he propels the plot along because of where he is, but he's really a side note to everything that's going on.
No, that totally makes sense. I think that's another one of the structural things that they were doing to say, Rosemary's Baby, Rosemary's Surfing Baby, or whatever, California take they want to do with this.
Yeah.
The Devil Goes Tiki Bar.
Well, that's kind of like that time they wanted to do Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian, right? So there are worse ways of doing it. So we have to go with it. But, we meet their neighbors, too, the Higgins, who seem like nice, folks, right? I mean, they're decent enough. They've had a daughter that's run off and joined the hippie clan and stuff. So there's that. But they seem to be sort of taken with these people in this little neighborhood. They come off good enough. But what I will say right now, I think is the best scene in the film, with one exception of what might have been the best scene near the end of the film, is what happens at night. The attack on them. But before we get to that, though, let's talk about this doll. Okay, so they have a little bit of a misunderstanding, we'll say, right? You've been married long enough. Anybody that has knows this. Sometimes you just say stuff and you're like, oh, that was the way wrong thing to say, wasn't it? And you're like, how do I get out of this? And John is preoccupied with medical boards and all that. And sure enough, and he talks about how hard it is. And she's like, hey, I'm the one birthing the kid over here.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I thought that was cute, though. It added a little bit to their relationship. That's one thing I'll say is that Ward Horton and Annabelle Wallis do have pretty good chemistry together.
Yeah, they feel like a legitimately married couple.
Yeah. And not like in that fake Hollywood sort of way. Like you could actually see these people, they kind of kid with each other and play around, and they have their own little shorthand and stuff. And so I give the actors credit for building that, from the roles.
Yeah, they definitely pull that little trick off. Mm-hmm. And it's a convenient it feels like a nice little like normal moment to set you up for all the crazy stuff that's going to happen later.
Oh, exactly. Because this is going to go off the reins here in a few minutes when they get going with everything. But he gives her this present. He's found this doll. She's been a doll collector. This apparently was one similar or one like she had when she was a kid. And so this one replaces that. And, what do you make of this doll? This thing is not, it definitely fits that motif of like some of the things my grandmother has, those old porcelain dolls, but it's just creepy just by itself. It doesn't even have to have the scratches and the blood on it that it gets later. It just looks weird from the start.
Yeah, it's definitely it makes me think of the Seinfeld episode where George dates a woman who has the doll that looks like his mother.
Ooh.
And her house is full of these weird, disturbing dolls. It's definitely like high up on the weird pop culture toy sort of thing. I hope they don't like make that doll to sell at the store, but I'm sure they will.
Oh, I'm sure McFarlane's already got tons of them, out there for people to have in various disarray. Hey, here's the thing I'll say about the doll that always gets me is that, supposedly the real Annabelle or whatever, you know what it is, right? It's a Raggedy Ann doll. And I had that on my wallpaper when I was a kid. And I, was after reading this, reading about it after The Conjuring and this, I thought, I almost think that would have even been creepier if they had taken, I'm sure they couldn't afford the license for it or whatever, but I almost think that would have been weirder than the weird porcelain doll.
Yeah, I think that actually probably would have worked better, I think. Because to me, if you look at Annabelle, you're looking at something that someone has basically designed to be unnerving.
Right. Well, okay, let's just talk about it now. James Wan, who directed The Conjuring and was responsible for that opening scene that gets replayed where they purposely don't show Vera Farmiga or Patrick Wilson so they don't have to pay him anything to be in this. I will say this. He's got a thing about dolls. Have you ever seen the movie Dead Silence that he came out with?
Oh yeah.
They definitely got a creepy doll like fetish. This guy does. The original Saw was built around Billy the Puppet and all that. This is not a guy that is far into the idea of doing the weird doll stuff. And I don't know what it is about him that it finds these just creepy little creatures to turn into to things on horror screens, but I don't know. He seems to always go for the weirdest looking thing he can find.
Yeah, he's definitely got some kind of attraction to that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me wonder: was there a creepy doll in Insidious?
I don't remember one, but there was creepy Tiny Tim music, so there's already that. So. I don't know. He's definitely got something going on with the creepy dolls, but he's not the one here on this. They play up with the same doll, but my thing is she's got this collection of them. And what did you make of that collection of dolls, man? It was pretty extensive.
Yeah, I don't see why she needed another doll to add to her collection.
I know. I'm like, well, first off, your kid can't play with any of that anyway. So
No, you don't want your child playing with an antique Victorian
no.
doll made out of ivory or whatever.
Yeah, porcelain. No, you don't want to fool with any of that. So yeah, that's one thing. But the other is, excuse me. Whew, the other is, it just seems to be like the kind of thing that a child would see and would not react well to. Like children are smart.
that was one of my many thoughts in the movie. Like when she puts it in the room with the crib, it's like, oh, that's a great thing to do to your child. Just why don't you just deliberately pipe nightmares into her brain like Clockwork Orange style.
Yeah, exactly. Or take him to see this movie and set him in a seat behind you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the same kind of thing that's going on here. So, but yeah, I thought the same thing. I was a very, very strange doll to have in a child's room, but nonetheless, that's the story, and so we go with it, right? And then we get into what happens that night, and like I said, I think this is the best scene in the whole film. She wakes up to, the windows are open, and to hear something going on next door, and sure enough, the Mr. Higgins gets up to go investigate a noise. Then the man runs in with, I guess he's got a hammer or something, and goes to attack the Mrs. And all you hear is that shriek, psycho violin sound, and see that blood splatter across the window sill, and you're like, oh wow, what went down next door? And I was hooked at that point. I mean, I really thought, wow, that is a good creepy moment.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that moment. I liked the way that they staged it, and they really were able to mine a lot of tension out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just by keeping the porch lights on,
Mm-hmm.
but not by having it be in a neighborhood like without street lights.
Mm-hmm.
I think really helped it a lot. That was a really well executed kind of set piece, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, and I love how she wakes him up and he goes next door to check it out, and he's like, "Don't call the cops. It's probably nothing." And I'm like, "Well, this is again going back to that time when things were more innocent. He didn't even lock the door when they came home from church, right? I mean, that's part of the neighborhood, that Mayberry-esque part of California they live in, Santa Monica or wherever this is supposed to be." And I don't know, I kind of liked that he's sort of trying to go, it's okay, you're just being hysterical, woman again. And then, of course, we find out very quickly that's not the case, because she's walking around, and I'm expecting something to come off the porch and get her. So I'm like, there's no way you're going to get away with that kind of activity.
Yeah, or something to be back in the house, waiting for her.
Right.
Which was fairly similar to what happened, but
Mm-hmm.
they delay it just long enough that it's not.
Well,
it still catches you by surprise.
Exactly. It's there to unnerve us. And I mean, I think that's the whole point, because he comes back out of the house, covered in blood, call the cops. I'm going to go work on these people, I guess, because he's nearly a doctor or whatever. He knows what to do. And so he's out there attending to them, and she runs back inside and does the 911 thing and all that. And we see in the background this, female figure walking around, right? And what we'll later learn is Annabelle Higgins, the daughter of the Higginses, who is staging this attack along with her friend, man, whatever, owner. I don't know how that all goes down in the Manson family, but it's definitely very weird. And we hear that little voice behind her. And I think this is the first real super creepy moment we get in the movie, is that I like your dolls. And I was like, it was one of the first moments I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to handle this today. So,
that was definitely like the moment that I wish they had put in the trailer. But I'm glad they didn't, because by not spoiling it for us, it made it that much creepier.
Yeah.
I mean, they spoiled the thing I liked, where you see the little bloody girl running, and then she busts through the door and becomes the screaming dead daughter.
Right.
But I like that they kept some of that stuff back for us.
Oh, yeah, and I thought that was fantastic. And then, of course, the part that I had heard was coming up is that you're going to see this woman attacked in her house. The guy comes up behind her, and I thought, he's not really going to do anything to her. When he stabbed her in the stomach, I thought, they are not going to go there. No way. And sure enough, they don't. But for a minute there, I thought, wow, we just went full Sharon Tate here in this movie, and that is brave for a little $6.5 million horror movie.
Yeah, just the fact that just the fact that they stab her at all is really a brave choice. You don't see a lot of violence against pregnant women.
No. So
in movies, and with good reason. It's people don't like that.
Yeah, people don't go for that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the truth. And so you have to be careful with protecting your audience, is what I call that. At some point you have to keep your audience from just totally revolting against you. But I don't know. I like the fact that he got beat up a little bit, she got attacked. That it was not an easy fight when Ward just showed back up, or when John showed back up.
Yeah, it wasn't the Hollywood man shows up, punches the guy out.
Right. I mean, he took a few
Smash
good
cut
licks.
smash cut to the cops arriving. He got the crap beat out of him. They both did. She lays there bleeding for what feels like an uncomfortable amount of time.
Yeah. So, and then the police show up, they gun down the man, and then, of course, they go into the bedroom and they find Annabelle Higgins holding that creepy doll and having apparently slit her own throat, drawn something weird on the side of the wall, and killed herself as part of this thing. And I'm like that. I mean, I felt Child's Play-esque there. I was like, all I needed was the little seance words and Brad Dourif's voice, and we'd have been right back there, because I knew immediately. I was like, well, clearly that's part of something much bigger that we're not let into just yet.
Yeah, very rarely in these horror movies do they set up the occult and then not use it.
Right.
For just once, I would like to see somebody do all the pentagrams and all that crap, and then the cops just be like, "Oh, that's just some idiot."
Well, they would if this was the 80s, because it's just a Motley Crue video at that point. But in the 60s, again, think about the times, the Tate murders, the Manson family, all that stuff is going on. I mean, this is very timely, and so I thought that was well placed and well done. So
now, see, I don't know, because to me, the 80s was all about the satanic panic.
Well, it was, but you could see it in popular culture. And so, I think the satanic panic happened in Middle America and in the South, things like that. In places like California, New York and stuff, they all just played it off as a joke, which is how really all of it was anyway, right? So, I don't know. I've always associated that more with Geraldo's viewers, things like that he really was the one that kind of got a lot of that over.
Yeah, in California, they had real Satanists, and they knew that they were mostly harmless.
Yeah, the real Satanists were, just people doing
Anton
a lot of...
Anton LaVey and his...
Just doing a lot of drugs and trying to creep everybody out. So, particularly anybody Catholic. So, but, that it's not the first time that'll happen in this film even itself. So, but I don't know. The thing that got me about this was, again, how they back away real quick from the brave choice that got made. She gets stabbed in the stomach, and the next scene is, you're going to be fine. Everything's cool. And I'm like, how is everything cool? I mean, I don't know. I've never been pregnant personally, but I don't just imagine that kind of trauma is not exactly, good for a mother or baby during this time.
Well, I mean, she does have to go on bed rest afterwards.
Yeah, which she doesn't do. Should we just go ahead and say she's sitting up and talking and walking around doing all kinds of things?
It's the least restful bed rest I think ever.
Yeah.
Because she's skulking around the house and making Jiffy Pop and all that stuff.
Or not making Jiffy Pop.
Or not making Jiffy Pop.
Not smelling it go off. Yeah, all kinds of weird things happen to this one.
That was, to me, that was my least favorite setup.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've known people who've been pregnant, who've had kids, et cetera, et cetera. You can't get a stink like that past a pregnant woman.
No, not even close. So, yeah, I didn't buy that for a second. So... Yeah.
I mean, you can't get that smell past me. It was basically worthless. Let alone somebody with a actual, a working nose that also has that extra necessary sensitivity.
Exactly, because they're attuned to everything at that moment. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why they were playing that way, but before we get to that though, is the whole setup that they do here with John and Mia, and everything's going to be fine, and the detective. And this detective I actually expected to play more of a role in the film, because they bring him back a couple of times, but after the next time he's around, he just kind of disappears. I sort of expected to see him in the climax somewhere.
Yeah, I think that was that was my expectation too. But I think I liked that he didn't show back up again, that he didn't really seem to matter.
Mm-hmm.
But he still felt like at times like he just was turned into Detective Exposition.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he had a name. I'm just going to call him Detective Exposition.
That's a good name for him, because I refer to him the way Sinister refers to one of the cops as Deputy So-and-so. He was Detective So-and-so. I didn't even know what his name was. Didn't matter. So he was just there to move plot points along. That was his whole purpose in life. So, which I don't know. It was fine. I mean, I guess that was okay. The thing is that, like I said, it's the least restful bed rest ever that this woman goes on. But they make the immediate choice, like, I cannot be in that house ever again, right? Like, you knew that was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I was okay with that, because I figured that's exactly what they'd have to do at this point. So to be able to pull something like that off, there's no way that one would ever be anywhere near that again. And that's the kind of smart choice you don't see people make in these type of films. So I actually, at that point, I'm kind of on the film side. Like, yes, you should move by all means. Get out of that place.
But that leads to a different problem. I mean, I know you are taking your possessed object with you, yes. But is there no running water between Pasadena and Malibu, or wherever they are, Santa Monica? Yeah. Is there no river? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the traditional rule of demons, is that they can't cross running water?
I thought that too. I don't know. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. I believe that is a rule there, but they apparently have broken that one around too. The other thing, and I thought what you were going for, is the fact that the doll is thrown out, but then automatically shows back up when they move to their new apartment. I thought you were making a statement about, is there no running water to wash the doll off with? Because Mia takes the doll and just sets it on the shelf. And at that point, I'm being led by the misdirect. I'm going, she's possessed by the doll. I'm like, it's going to be the mother possessed, right? Or the baby's now possessed. Something has possessed this poor woman at this point, right? Like, there's no way that this is just going to go down easy.
That was kind of a direction I was going into for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But then I just realized that this woman is just dumb. All these people are just dumb.
Yeah, she does begin to make the possible worst choices ever that she can make, right? Okay, you've got to work the night shift now? Yeah, okay, cool. I'll stay here in this brand new place that I don't know anything about by myself. Sure, no problem.
Yeah, and listen to my unsettling 60s pop records.
Yeah, exactly. I can't, my mom can't come visit for a couple of months. Your mom can't come visit for a few months.
We can't buy a gun.
Yeah, we can't buy some extra locks. Maybe we shouldn't live upstairs since I am pregnant.
Maybe maybe a big dog. Maybe a nice walkout ranch.
Yeah, something. I mean, I know we got to be close to work, honey, but come on.
Like a Doomsday Preppers compound in the hills.
Again, they're not thinking about it. And that's the thing, is we're not supposed to give the film this kind of thought, but I catch myself doing it, because outside of that tension that was created with that first opening kill and stuff, there's nothing here to keep me, really engaged and listening to a lot of this, right? Like, it's just sort of, I don't know, it kind of hits a lull.
Yeah, it definitely slows down in the middle. At least between the part where they move and when the baby is born. Even after the baby is born, it's still slow for a while.
Yeah. Let's talk about the birth of the baby, how that goes down, because that's on a traumatic experience as well.
I don't remember that one so much.
I'm trying to it's like, hold on a minute. I've got a note here about it. Let's see. That's when she sees the little girl that runs at her, I think. So no, that's after that. You're right. She does something though that brings about the birth, like in a violent way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's escaping me at this point, but that might have been when I got up to go to the bathroom.
It could be. You know what? We'll just get by it, right? So Mia has the baby finally, and then weird stuff starts happening around her, right? Like, she meets the little kids on the steps of her apartment building, and one of them's drawing pictures, and he ultimately, when she comes back home, he's drawn all these pictures, or something has, right, of her and her baby getting run over by a big truck, which is really weird and unsettling.
A little bit.
But the thing is, those kids, do we ever see them again?
No.
And that killed me. I was like, what? Why introduce them and then never go back to them? That I was furious at this movie for that, because I was like, come on, don't set something like that up and then leave me hanging.
It also seems weird to me that the kids were the boy was so stranger danger.
Yeah, and the girl just seemed to go with it, right?
Yeah. It's like, oh, she's nice. She can't be mean. She's got a baby. Because, no one evil has ever had a baby, apparently.
Yeah, exactly, right? These kids clearly hadn't seen Rosemary's Baby yet. So that's the thing to take away from there. But, this is also the time when we meet Evelyn. Or, as I will just sort of crudely say now, this movie's magical African-American. Like, literally, right?
Yeah, quite literally. She's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me sad, because Alfre Woodard's a really good actress and good at playing bit parts, like good at playing small things, but she is almost totally wasted in this movie, I feel like.
I know Alfre Woodard's got to get paid too, like the rest of us, but
yeah,
you can't give her something better to work with than what she's got.
Yeah, Evelyn's whole story is that she and her daughter were coming back from a visit, and she was sleepy while driving, and while she was driving back, she has a wreck and kills her daughter, right? And in the years that followed that, she had a rough time. She really, struggled with stuff and almost tried to kill herself, and she claims she saw a vision of her daughter that told her, no, it's not your time, you're built to do something better, which automatically let me know in a telegraph that, well, she's going to play a role in the climax in some way. I don't know what, but clearly she will have to redeem that.
Sorry, I was eating a cookie.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. They really kind of. It seems like the more I pick at this movie, the more I pick it apart.
Yeah,
like I'm pulling, I'm pulling a chicken meat off the bones.
Yes.
There are still good bones here, but her story about. Well, because my suicide attempt didn't work, I know that I'm here for better things felt a little pat to me, and it really...
Well, it just seemed to come out of nowhere, too. I was like, did we even need that character to be that way? Like, I don't know that was necessary, even. I would have been fine if they kept this thing smaller and this was all of the John and Mia show. Like, why couldn't it have been that? Because this is the part where I really feel like John is just sort of shoved to the side for about 30 minutes.
Yeah, and you could give this part to the priest. You could probably give the priest part to what's her name?
Alfre Woodard.
Yeah, you could have given the priest part to Evelyn.
See, that's what I thought they were going to go with, but then I remembered they set something up there in the very beginning about how religious these people are. Like they're not. They're playing around in church or whatever, but they clearly have a relationship with their priests there and stuff. Like these are people that believe in their faith and they're grounded by it in some way. So you introduce mysticism to them, that kind of plays against itself, right? Like I don't know that you can be devoutly Catholic and do some voodoo on the side.
Hey, you never know. There's a lot of mystical elements to Catholicism.
This is true. So it's maybe if they were Jewish and it was Kabbalah, I would go with it. But
they already did that movie with what's his name?
Oh yeah, that's right. That was that the
Dybbuk.
Yeah.
The comedian was in it, and Matisyahu.
Yes, yeah. We're both talking about the same thing. I know what you're talking about. So yeah, I don't know. I was curious to be how they were going to play this, because the Evelyn role and the priest role seemed to be too many. Like they needed to have one of those people or none of them. Like both of them seemed to be fighting for supporting cast role here.
Yeah, and they both seem to be fighting to be the spiritual advisor, so to speak.
Right. And I'll admit, watching this movie, I'm even feeling this. Like, as much as I was into that opening and really just, got freaked out by it and stuff, there's nothing that's creeped me out nearly close to that, because they'd already blown the bit about the little girl that turns into the adult and runs through Mia in the apartment. So I knew that was coming. I'd seen that. And I don't know. I just didn't. There was nothing really just making me go, okay, it's sort of your standard haunting. That's what it felt like, at least.
Yeah, I checked back in for the elevator scene that we've already talked about, or that we've mentioned in brief. And I checked back in for the shot of the demon like behind the doll, holding the doll up.
Mm-hmm.
I like that part, but I did kind of check out in the middle.
Well, let's talk about the one thing that happens in the middle that is of consequence, and that's the fact that she calls him that detective, right? And probably the most unrealistic thing in the film, in a film that is totally unrealistic, right, is this conversation she has with the detective, I think. Because not only did he come over to her house and bring her crime scene documentation of things, he lets her see and keep crime scene photos of like people massacred and sacrifices and all that stuff. That just seemed really, you talk about, Deputy Nobody. I didn't get what that was. There could have been another way she discovered that. She reads a newspaper. Couldn't there have been something else that we gave her that information and she didn't have to work with this cop that isn't going to play a major role in this movie?
Yeah. I think to me the most unrealistic part would be that the cop would drive up to Pasadena from, Santa Monica or wherever in LA they were living before. Because,
right.
Why would you go like an hour plus out of your way just to show some crime scene photos to a lady?
Yeah.
With a kid. Maybe she could have dug in the newspaper. I mean, that's what a microfiche montage is for.
True. So I guess so, but I don't know. There could have been something else that allowed her to get that. Evelyn could have helped her look all this stuff up.
That would have been a good idea. That would have Evelyn would have been more useful then.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of just a lot more sense.
Instead of just buying books for the baby and clothes and being sort of the black grandma, so which is really all the role she plays for about a 20-minute segment of this. It's really strange. But we get through all of that stuff to actually get to things that we've mentioned, but we need to talk about in detail now, and those are the really scary parts, the haunting parts that are going on around this house. John's supposed to come home from work. They're going to have a dinner date at home, and she's got her romantic music on. They got the wine out, all this stuff, and you get the sense that Mia's eating that meal for about 3 hours by herself. So she's there by herself, and she turns the record player off. And not only does it come back on, but Rod, it comes back on with a vengeance. I mean, it blasts to the ceiling. Apparently, this demon likes his, Carpenter-esque pop music.
Yeah, who knew that demons were into the Light FM?
Yeah, I didn't know. I would have always said demons would be more the psychedelic route from this era, but apparently not. So, which is, I don't know, it's kind of neat, but it was a good scare, right? And it also leads us into some of the other scares that come up. There's the one where, she actually is in the street once and the baby carriage rolls out into the street and a green truck smashes it to bits, and then all of a sudden the baby's in her arms. So it's like she's having hallucinations, right? And when Mia starts to lose her mind and come unnerved by all of these things, that's when I sort of check back in with the movie and realize now I'm watching something I want to see. This is interesting.
It was the part leading up. It was like, I think you said it was like somebody writing a 44-minute television episode versus a 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
And it definitely feels that way, especially in the middle. Because the parts where I think they knew what they wanted to do are really well done. Like, the supernatural elements are really well executed. Mm-hmm. The scares in the third act are really good. The first act is really good. It's just in that middle where they're padding for time.
Yeah. It's like they don't know how to totally pace it out to get to 95 minutes or however long this is. Like they don't have anything to go. And it's fine that it slows down. House of the Devil slowed down for a long time with nothing happening. Then, the girl got her face shot off and then all of a sudden nothing happens for another 15 minutes. But that leads you to the one place to another. One thing led to another with that. Like they got somewhere. This all seemed to be just useless backstory and exposition that could have been done a lot better ways. I think that's what I'm feeling too. And it sounds like the same thing you saw.
Yeah, and the movie was 99 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So they definitely could have cut out that extra 9 minutes.
Yeah,
just making it even hour and a half. You could probably have gotten away with 85 minutes. I don't think anybody would complain.
No. I think a good horror movie, it's hard to get one that lasts over an hour and a half and maintains its tension. Like it's very rare that that can ever even exist. It has to be paced just right, and this one fails in the middle. But when it picks back up, man, it picks back up with a vengeance. And probably the second best scare, I would say, in the film, next to the opening kill of the Higgins, is Mia on the elevator. We talk about that? Okay,
yes,
so she goes down to the storage area below to put something up or whatever, and that baby carriage rolls itself out, and we see the strange dark figure standing over that baby carriage, and she runs to try to get on the elevator, and the door keeps opening back up on the basement and keeps opening back up on the basement, and that figure is getting closer. And that was when I began to crawl out of my skin again and be like, okay, yeah, now I'm scared again. So.
Yeah, that was really one of the better set pieces. Clearly, they had been thinking about that one for a while.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great moment. I mean, that whole thing is well done, and really, it's a great freak out too, because it gives you something. You start to realize that Mia is not just making all this up. That's the thing, is that sometimes movies like this will play with the idea of like, well, maybe these people are just making this up, right? And they let us in real quick. They're like, no, this is all really happening to her, and it keeps happening, and it keeps happening. And she gets that weird cut on her arm, which is the same as the thing that the woman put into her or carved into the wall, right? And I don't know. I thought all of that, again, was really well done and a good creepy set of moments.
Oh, yeah. That one was really that was one of my favorite parts, I think. To me, it wasn't just that it happened once or twice. The fact that it happened like 6 times, and that it went past my comfort level with that kind of scene. Yeah. And I think it really works because of that.
No, absolutely, it does. I mean, it just keeps on and on and on. It just really weirds you out. And so, of course, she gets, she's already heard from the detective about Annabelle Higgins, and she was in a satanic cult, and all this stuff. And she's talking to Evelyn about all this. And so the next thing is she, of course, has lost her mind at this point. Husband comes home, and she's like, "Okay, we gotta talk to a priest. We gotta do something, or we gotta talk to somebody." And we got to get a gun, we got to get a dog, something, right? I mean, and I like that she's like, we're doing something. We're not just going to sit here. I'm not crazy. I will not be ignored, Dan. We're going to come up with something. And I love that his answer is like, you know what? We're going to go to Father Perez, because he's somebody we can trust. And I don't know, I thought that was cool. And I love, too, that the priest doesn't just, the usual role of the priest in these kind of movies when this happens is, oh, child, there's nothing to be afraid of and stuff. And I love how he's like, okay, yeah, well, you sound like you got a class 4 demon there, so, and he's like automatically knows what to do. Which,
definitely something to be afraid of here. Let's just kind of, I'll take this murder doll off your hands.
Yes, exactly. But I like that, though, because that played against type of what I would expect, right, is that these, usually those people, again, are against you. They don't work with you, so readily. And in this case, he's like, no, okay, yeah, I believe you. So.
Yeah, the fact that everyone takes them seriously really was a refreshing change and a positive change, I think.
Right, because the trope is that no one ever believes you until it's too late, right? And so I don't know. I liked all of that. I liked the way that played for the John and Mia here, and the I'm watching the father throw that thing in his side seat, and I love how he takes one look at it like, no, I'm not riding shotgun with that thing. And so he throws it in the back, and I'm sitting there next to my wife going, it's going to crawl up. It's going to crawl up out of the back. It's going to sit up in the rear view because they're setting that up, and then they don't do it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give this movie credit for something because I thought that would be the place to go, that would be the next thing they did, and they don't do it. And so I appreciate it when movies can play with my expectations like that, and this one certainly did.
I really liked that they set that up and didn't do it. Mm-hmm. Every time they had a chance to make the doll itself do something creepy, they flat out refused.
Yeah, it's like the doll didn't get a chance to be Chucky. And I think they were aware of that in some way. Like they were like, we're not going to have Chucky Bell run around this set.
Yeah, and I think that really helped excuse me. I think that really helped keep the movie even more grounded. I mean, as grounded as a movie about a demonic possession doll can be.
Right.
Is that they flat out refuse to do all the creepy stuff that you would expect from a creepy doll movie.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about the demonic possession. Is the doll possessed, or is the demon just following them, and the doll just happens to be one of its playthings?
Well, they established pretty strongly that the doll is linked to the demon, at least in The Conjuring.
Right. But it seems like they almost retcon it here to me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. It does feel like the doll is almost an afterthought for the demon.
Yeah. So, at least for the demon side, it's just, again, it's its tool that it uses to just mess with these people, or at least to mess with Mia, because that's what keeps happening. Of course, the priest is taking the creepy doll away, and before he can even get it in the church, the adult ghost of Annabelle Higgins shows up, right? And I guess she force throws him out of the church. It was pretty wild what happened there.
Yeah, he's walking towards the church with the doll, and then all of a sudden he just gets shot backwards like he was launched off a catapult.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool and a good effect, and I thought he was dead. The fact that he lives through that and ultimately survives the film is a surprise to me. I really thought Father Perez, that was the end of him. And
yeah, I had assumed he would be dead at that point too.
Yeah. So,
if only because that's the traditional rule, is that the meddlesome / helpful priest is gonna die.
Exactly. And honestly, can I just tell you now, I kind of thought that I really think they needed to do that. I think he needed to die. I'm just going to say, yeah, I think we needed to have some sort of cost for everything that was happening here. No one was being killed. There was a lot of weird stuff happening, sure, but it was just really freaking everybody out more than anything. That I needed a death, and since I already thought there were too many characters in this as it was, if he would have died there, I'd have been okay with it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But I kind of like that nobody died, because you don't get a lot of people just dying in real life because of these sorts of supernatural events. You know what I'm saying? Oh no, even if you don't necessarily believe in them.
Yeah.
You can still say, well, all these people who see this stuff, none of them actually die, unless we're talking about like the DeFeos from.
Yeah. So who were shot by a family member. So
from what is it?
Amityville
2.
Yeah,
where they do the movie.
Well, I think they were the DeFeos were the original family that actually lived in the Amityville house that were murdered there by their son, and then
right. But they used that story for Amityville 2, right?
Correct. Yeah, okay. I think that's exactly what happened. Yeah, so they go tell the prequel or whatever at that point. But yeah, been a while since I saw Amityville 2. But I remember the horror that Amityville 3 was. So, and so everything just kind of reminds me of that at this point. Anyway, I don't know. I think I wanted stakes is what I was looking for, because again, after that great fake out or a great setup in the elevator and stuff, I needed something to happen here, and nothing again did for a little bit.
Yeah, it's almost like they take their foot off the gas a little bit and let the movie kind of coast, because they had 20 minutes of cool stuff and they had to kill 35 minutes. Right.
I mean, it's one thing to let a movie breathe. I'm all about that. That's fine. But you can also let one go to sleep too. And I feel like at different points this one is doing that. It's teetering on the border of becoming a bore, which is sort of sad to say about a good horror movie. But the premise here is amazing. The fact that it's not completely paying off is disappointing.
But I don't think that's like the director's fault though. Because I think it's a scripting issue.
Oh no, I agree with you totally. And I lay a lot of the problems with this, and we talked about it. I had mentioned to you offline. I feel like a lot of the problems with this are the fact that it's written by somebody that mainly works on television and has done rewrites and things. That's you don't know how to pace the thing, then it's it's hard to pace. So I get that totally. That's completely the feel here. But
I mean, and I think the director does a really good job with what he's given.
he does an adequate job with what's there. I just wish there had been some more stakes, and maybe he wasn't in a position where he could force his way a little bit more. But I really wished he had, because I needed something else to happen here before we get to what's going to be the climax. Because at this point, John's in the hospital sitting bedside with the priest. No, never mind to call your wife and go, hey, by the way, our priest just like got totally messed up. What happened? And waiting for him to wake up so he can tell him what we already know. The doll is nowhere to be seen. So the doll has gotten away. The demons got it, whatever. But we do get a really good attack here on Mia and Evelyn back at the house, I think. I liked the way that the demon looked when we finally got a good look at it. It was a little Pazuzu from Exorcist.
Yeah, it definitely does look really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love that final battle, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about it. Evelyn gets basically thrown out of the apartment.
Yeah, she gets the force shove out the door.
Yeah, so this thing is really good at doing that. So there's the force shove out the door, and then it's chasing Mia down the hall. And we've seen this thing chase her every other way around the world. So to see it go down the hall at this point is just another another unnerving bit. But I don't know. I'm waiting for anything to happen at this point. I'm like, but this is finally ratcheting up tension here. And we see her as John is racing back to the apartment to get her to save her because Perez has woken up and told him everything that's going on, or at least what he knows. She goes into the bedroom, and there's the Annabelle doll. I mean, it's been sitting up behind her. It's creeping her out. And at this point, it's laying in the crib. And when she grabs it, I lean over to my wife, and I'm like, I bet that's her baby for real and not the Annabelle doll. And then she proceeds to beat the holy hell out of it against that crib, that metal crib, dents the crib, throws the doll across the room, and then in the next flash, it's the baby on the floor. And I'm sitting there like gasping to myself going, no way they're going to do this. Can they do this? And I'm actually, at this point, I'm going to be honest with you, I was rooting for the movie to go there. Even though that is a horrible, horrible thing, and that makes me a bad person for saying that I wanted to see an infant murdered. But I thought if this movie goes there, this is the coolest and most gut-wrenching and risk-taking horror movie of the last 20 years. But, of course, they don't go there.
Well, yeah. I mean, that would have been a phenomenally brave choice.
Yeah. So, but what they do is that it turns out to be another doll that just laughs at her. And that's when I begin to wonder, what does this demon want? Because it's drawing all over the ceiling is that I want her soul, I want your soul, I want a soul, something. I want some soul, so put on some James Brown on the record player. I mean, there's something going on. It's all about the soul, and then I'm in Chucky land again, and I'm like, why is this thing still playing with her? It clearly can get her to do whatever it wants. Is it just trying to drive her so mad that she has no other choice but to come to the realization that she thinks she needs to be out, which is to throw herself out the window?
I think that was my assumption. That was what I had assumed it was doing.
Okay.
I did like the teased baby murder part, like you did, and I liked that that's a doll. It was a doll we had seen earlier.
Right.
It was Chekhov's doll.
There you go. Chekhov's blonde doll this time instead of the other one.
Chekhov's giggling doll.
Yeah. So
talk about unnerving.
Oh yeah, just the giggling doll out of nowhere. Yeah, I was creeped out by that for sure. So it's definitely a weird vibe that they've got going on here with this whole movie. But of course they don't go with it. John shows up and he immediately. I'm like, this guy should be like in crisis counseling. He should be a psychiatrist instead of being a physician because he's really good at talking people off the ledge. This isn't the first time we've seen him do this. And at one point I thought maybe they were going there with that, was he was going to play a shrink or something, but of course he's not. But I don't know. I thought that was neat that he's able to convince her out of that. But then the most, I guess, obvious thing since the Alfre Woodard story about her daughter comes up is we realize that, Evelyn's going to be the one that sacrifices herself. So not only does she have an almost thankless role here, but Alfre Woodard's just there to jump out the window.
Yeah, that was... I understand setting a movie in the 60s, but I don't think you need to write it like it is the 60s.
Yeah.
You know? I don't think you need to have the magical Negro throw herself out the window to save her white friends.
Yeah, save the white baby. Yeah.
Yeah, to save the little white baby and the little blonde girl.
Exactly. So
that just left a bad taste in my mouth because it felt unnecessary.
Yeah, it didn't need to happen that way. Like, why couldn't there have been, the priest hands him a cross or something that says, go do this and say these words and believe. Like, this guy's devout enough or comes off at least that much that you could have believed the faith would have knocked it out. I mean, that would have been as satisfying as what we get, which is Alfre Woodard throws herself out the window.
I mean, they clearly established that these people are like legitimate, always there Catholics.
Right.
Because, they're friends with their neighbors who, in the beginning of the movie, give them a ride home from church.
Mm-hmm.
They know the priest knows them.
Yes, he takes pictures of their kid, which I thought that was going to pay off into something like he sees something in the picture.
I was expecting that too, but I think I was getting that from Insidious.
Yeah, I think I'm relying on another horror movie for that. Yeah, but I kept waiting for something like that to pay off because none of it pays off into any of that, and that's kind of disappointing. So, and then the end,
if you're going to use Alfre Woodard as in your climax, have her do some like voodoo stuff or something, you know? If you're going to go there.
And why not have something that lets us know that she's rewarded for that sacrifice and not eternally, condemned for it?
Yeah, condemned for some stuff that isn't even her business.
Like, this ain't even her problem. That's what I'm saying. She's sort of taking it on to be her problem, but it's not her problem. I didn't buy the whole bit about this is what my daughter meant. This is what I was meant for. Maybe you were just supposed to be nice to people too, Mom. That's sort of lousy. So, is that you have to die.
Yeah. Maybe you're just mentally ill.
Yeah. So I don't know. I didn't particularly enjoy that. I thought that could have been done a lot better, and I wished it had been too. I don't know what could have made it, but as it turns out, everything's fine, right? Though even they and the priest have the conversation though after church. Did they ever find the doll? I'm like, I wouldn't want to know, man. If it wasn't around anymore, I'd be like, what doll? There is no doll.
I don't know what you're talking about. Alfre Woodard jumped out that window by herself.
Exactly. So, and I love also too that much like the 60s, there's absolutely no police investigation into any of this. So why did your neighbor kill herself for seemingly no reason? Well, we don't know.
I think to me, what would have made the whole Alfre Woodard part work a little bit better for me is if when all the craziness happened, she just bailed.
Exactly. I'm gone.
Like the moment she gets force thrown out the apartment and helps him bust in, he runs in. She stays on the landing because she's clearly smarter than these people.
Exactly. She should have been. That should have been. But
I mean, she runs a successful small business.
Yeah.
And for a black woman in the 60s, that's a pretty big deal.
Even a progressive state like California, yes, that is a very big deal. I agree. It does seem like a wasted role and kind of a forced ending. I'll be honest. I don't know. I sort of felt like, well, that ended. Okay. And then roll credit. Well, we get the coda too. The bit about, the doll makes its way to the store because we have to, bookend with The Conjuring, right? And, now we get to the story that I think you and I were looking for.
You can't give Patrick Wilson $1,000, have him come in for one day of shooting.
That's what I wanted to know, man, but I guess not.
I know Vera Farmiga's probably busy because she's, I assume they're shooting Bates Motel right now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, come on. He could surely show up for scale. I mean, or get a look-alike. Something.
You'd have had something to get us back. But maybe they are saving it like we've talked about for the Annabelle 2,
That's my only assumption to make. I mean, they've got a great idea there. I mean, clearly, if you can get James Wan interested again, he can, bang it out. Or, this guy can direct it again. Just need a better script.
Well, that's the thing is, Wan is, I don't know if he's involved in Conjuring 2 or not. I think he is. Let me look that up because that sounds goofy if I don't know that. Well, James Wan right now is doing Fast and Furious 7. So I guess he's finishing that up as it were, but he's, working on that. And then, I don't know how involved he'll be in The Conjuring 2. Right now, there's not direction listed on the IMDb page and stuff. So maybe he'll come back for that or produce or something. But, he's not. I know they got the stars back for it, but he has said in a lot of places he doesn't just want to do horror movies. So maybe he's done with this. I don't know. But, yeah.
When they give you a chance to work with Jason Statham, I mean, how can you not do it?
What's that? Yeah, Jason Statham and Vin Diesel. Oh, yeah, money. So.
Oh yeah, it's the baldest movie ever made. All you got to do is get Bruce Willis in there somehow. Maybe for Fast and Furious 8.
I am personally hoping there's never a Fast and Furious 8. Having liked some of the previous Fast and Furious films, I'm sort of ready for that series to end. But another conversation for another day, perhaps. But well, Ron, I think we're at the point of the podcast where it's time to give final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So, what are yours for Annabelle?
A lot. It feels like a lot of wasted potential. I think. Like there's some really good ideas, and there's some really good pieces, but much like those. Those cold cuts that have all the weird pieces of stuff in them?
Yes.
Much like a pimento loaf, this just does not pull together in a completely appetizing way, although if you pick out the pimentos, there's still some delicious stuff there. That's really incredibly strange, but I like it. I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah.
The pimento loaf analogy is going to be great.
That's pretty
There's a lot. I think there's a lot to recommend, and I think that if you can see it at like matinee price, particularly the early bird matinee when it's like $5,
yeah,
it would be worth it. It's still really entertaining in spite of itself. I just see that it could have been a lot better than it was, so I'm gonna go medium popcorn.
I think this is the very definition of what I like to call medium popcorn. It's a movie that could be so much more, but for various and sundry reasons, just fails in a lot of stuff. But it gets enough right that at least it's not a complete and total washout. There's enough here to have a good time with. I mean, clearly I told you, go sleep deprived, you're probably going to get scared a little bit, by it. It'll do that. It's got enough moments, but I almost feel like it's 3 episodes of a TV show sort of slammed together, and one of those episodes isn't terribly interesting. But the other 2 have got stuff going on that are pretty solid. So I like it, but I don't think it's not nearly as strong as House of the Devil was, and I don't even know if it's as good as The Conjuring for me. I liked pretty well The Conjuring from start to finish, even though it ended with an exorcism, and I just sort of don't go for those generally, but I thought that was okay. This one could have been much better, but I'll say this. They've got something here. If they want to go back to this and do Annabelle 2 and do the story of the nurses, I'd be down to come back and check that out. I would be interested to see where it goes. But yeah, medium popcorn for me as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely coming back for Annabelle 2 with the nurses. I mean, I'd probably come back for Annabelle 2 anyway. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, it's good. It'd be a pretty good run, but I think the thing I like here is that there's enough here that they could do it really good next time, I hope, and maybe they will. We'll see for sure. But it's been an interesting conversation nonetheless. So, Ron, thanks for joining me on these 2 special episodes here for our Shocktober Halloween season, as we do a couple of treats for people's podcast bucket, if you will, for the this time of the year.
Are we going to do a trick episode where we tell everyone we're going to review a good movie and then we go review Glitter?
No, I don't tend to do that to our poor audience.
That would be more of a trick on us, because
yeah, it would. Yeah, and I think with some of the things we've got recorded to be coming out in the coming months, I think we've done enough tricks. But you and I are going to turn around and do some more horror, though, my friend. We've got the 3 Tales from the Crypts movies. In fact, I didn't even know one of them existed until we got ready to do that retrospective. But we're doing that one next. That's our next series coming right up here, and so we're going to keep the shocks going on through November before getting into some other things toward the end of the year, and then all kinds of fun stuff we've got planned for 2015, and you never know what might still come out. There's lots of stuff coming out at the holiday season. We may grab a one-off here somewhere, and then I know for a fact you and Brian and I have gone down a road of I guess what started off as an a friendly argument online about the worst movie you've ever seen. And we've reviewed a couple of those, and that's going to be coming out in the early part of next year, too.
Oh, that'll be fun. We should. That'll be a good January dumping period.
Yes,
for the podcast. Much like Hollywood.
Much like Hollywood. That's what we're coming up with. We're going to come up with a great thing right out of the top. I'm not going to tell y'all what that is yet because I'm really excited about that podcast. But then we are going to review what possibly may be the 2 worst movies ever put in cinema. But, and then we've got all kinds of fun stuff heading up for the spring. We're going to do Back to the Future. You and I are going to do the Dirty Harry films. And then even, looking at way far ahead to next summer, really May, we're going to do the Mad Max series.
Yeah, we were planning this out ridiculously far in advance.
Yes. We like to plan ahead. That's the rule here on Continuous Play. Then, of course, as always, best laid plans will turn into mush, and we'll have to change all that because the studio will find some way to mess us up. But hopefully they won't. We can make it through this. We'll see how it goes as we get closer to time. So it should be fun. But thanks for joining us again here, folks. You can find more episodes on our website, continuousplaypodcast.com. Click the movies button. And then also, when you get a chance, leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know what you think of the show. We really do appreciate your support. It'll help us a ton. And it helps other people find the podcast, too, when you leave reviews on iTunes for us. So we really appreciate everything. And I've always enjoyed interacting with our listeners. So let us know what you think of the show, what you think of the movie. And, hey, if you disagree with us, that's fine. Let us know. We'll be glad to take a run at that with you and talk about it with you on social media platforms around the web. So until next time, for Ron, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Film Strip.